All right. Today I'm going to attempt to introduce you to something called the circle of fifths. And this is relating to our topic of key signatures, of major scales. And really, what this is, it's kind of like, the decoder ring that you get in the cereal box that shows you how these things relate to each other. And I will try to explain this coming from a couple of different angles. Hopefully, it helps, it's helpful. And the more that you kind of interact with it, I think it becomes more useful. So let's just jump in and see if we can make some sense of the circle of fifths. Definitely, read this page maybe before you listen to this video, and then what I say will just reinforce. But what it basically shows us is the relationship of the keys and the number of sharps or flats that are needed for those keys to work or to follow that pattern of whole steps and half steps that gives us a major scale. It's sort of like a clock. We've got at the top the key of C major, which has no flats or sharps. So technically, when you look at the key signature for C major, I'm playing all the white notes. There are no flats or sharps. So the key signature for C major is no flats or sharps. That's the key signature. There's nothing there. We don't add natural signs or anything like that. We just put nothing. And then it's understood that we're playing in the key of C major. All right, let's start by going to the right. The first two major scales that we showed you in the textbook were G and D. And the reason for this is because the major scale that has one sharp is the key of G. There it is, F sharp. The key of C has none. The key of G has one. So as we work our way to the right in the circle of fifths, each key signature or key that we move to progressively has one more sharp. G has one sharp, which is F sharp. D has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. The key of A has three sharps, F, C, and G. And as you work your way to the right, you eventually get to the point where you're using 7 sharps, which is as many as you can have in a scale because there's only 7 notes in a scale. And that's the key of C sharp, where literally every note is sharp. Let's go back to the top. Key of C, no flats or sharps. If we go to the left in the circle of fifths, we enter into the flat keys. The first flat key is the key of F. And it has one flat, which is B flat. So here's C. If we start on an F and we observe the major scale pattern of whole steps and half steps, we are forced to play a B flat. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. So F has one flat. So that's the first step or the first, movement to the left in this circle of fifths. B flat has 2 flats. E flat has 3 flats. So it's exactly the same. We work our way around to the left until finally we get to the very last key of flat keys, which is the key of C flat, where all the notes are flat, 7 flats. Okay? So each time we're adding one more flat sign in order to observe that pattern, and we work our way around. At the bottom, we notice that these things overlap. So let's say we go to the sharp keys, here's the key of E, which has 4 sharps. The key of B, starting here, has 5 sharps. And notice that if we start on a B, there is an inharmonic note for B, which is C flat, right? C flat. So C flat sounds exactly like B. And so that is why the key of C flat and the key of B are called inharmonic keys. They're spelled 2 different ways. just like intervals or just like notes, but they sound the same. Here's B major. Here's C flat major. It's the same thing. It sounds exactly the same. So at the bottom of the circle of fifths, these are the enharmonic keys. C flat and B major, G flat and F sharp major, D flat and C sharp major. So in the same way that notes can have enharmonics, keys can have enharmonics too. And it kind of makes you think, like, why would anybody write something in the key of C flat? That just seems like cruel and unusual punishment. If I was writing a piece of music and I wanted it to have that note as my first note, I would write it in the key of B, because the key of B is 5 sharps, which generally speaking, I would say is easier to read than C flat, which has 7 flats, right? There's reasons why people might write it one way or the other, having to do with the kind of instrument that you play. String instruments, as it turns out, are more accustomed to playing in sharp keys. Wind instruments like brass instruments are more accustomed to playing in flat keys. It has to do with how the instruments themselves are pitched. So, depending on your instrument, you might be more comfortable with sharp keys or flat keys. But in any case, that's how the circle of fifths works. We're basically adding one more sharp or one more flat each time and working our way around. 2 more points to make here. One is, why do we call it the circle of fifths? Well, that's because if you look, when we go from this key which has none to this key which has 1, we're moving from a C to a G. And how far is it from C to G? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's an interval, a distance of a fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So C to G is a fifth. So we've moved to the right by a fifth. If we start on the key of G major and we go up a fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where do we end up? We end up on a D. So D is a fifth away from G. A is a fifth away from D. So we work our way around the circle in a pattern of fifths. And so it's this weird congruence where one more sharp is a fifth away in terms of key signature, in terms of scale. And the same thing is true this way. If I go left or down from C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we go from C down to F, right? And if I go from F down, we end up on a B flat, and so forth. So as we go to the left in the circle of fifths, we go to a note that is a fifth below where we were before. All right, last thing I want to bring up on the circle of fifths for now is the pattern or the order of the sharps and the flats. And this is something I would love to have you just memorize. So here's what it looks like. The order of the sharps is this. If you have 1 sharp in a key signature, it will always be F sharp. If you have 2 sharps, it will always be F sharp and C sharp. 3 sharps, F, C, and G. So the little thing that we sometimes use to help people memorize the order of the sharps is fat cats go down alleys eating birds. Or brisket. Whatever you want them to eat, you can make up your own, I don't care. That's the one I learned in school. Fat cats go down alleys eating birds. It will always be in this order. So if I were to ask you, how many sharps does a key have if it's, or maybe the correct question is, if I give you a key that has 5 sharps, what are they? And your answer is going to be fat cats go down alleys. So 5 sharps is F, C, G, D, A. Make sense? The order of the flats is just exactly the opposite, the order of the sharps. So I'm going to do this backwards. Spells the word bead, GCF. Somebody told me a very clever thing for this, and I forgot what it was, but you can come up with your own, or you can look at them online or something. Go to YouTube videos about key signatures of the circle of fifths, and you'll find some stuff. So the same thing, if I were to ask you, what flats will we find in a key that has 3 flats, right? It will always be B, E, and A. And when I write that key signature, let's see if I can add room here. So 3 flats is going to be B, E, and A. And if you start practicing your key signatures and sort of memorizing what those are, maybe you've figured out by now that the name of that key is E flat. So the notes are going to start on an E flat and work their way up to the next E flat. All right. I know it's a lot and maybe it's a little bit confusing, but keep checking out that page 53. Maybe watch this video a couple of times. And if you see others online that are better explanations than mine, hey, share them with the class and we can all figure out how to teach the circle of fifths a little bit better. For now, I would say post your questions on the discussion forum, and good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.